right, so welcome back to Happy Hour with Heather and Guest. I'm Andrew. I'm joined by Matt Geary from Philadelphia, who's got a new album coming out later this month. Well, next month, I should say, March 24th, called Ghost in the Western Trap. Um, One of the interesting things that I read to give some background on this album, it explores complex ideas through a progressive and experimental approach. There's a lot of ambiance and vast soundscapes with intricate melodic lead instruments. So I had the privilege of listening to the album. I can confirm both of those things are true. And it was a really enjoyable listen for me. So well
Thank
done.
you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, at this, I don't even know what it sounds like anymore because, like, anytime I record something, I'm so obsessive about like every little aspect of it that like it kind of gets like habituated where I don't even really know like what it would sound like to like somebody else anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I had two questions specifically right off the bat. The first was there were a lot of instruments in the album that I wasn't expecting
Hmm.
necessarily.
Yeah.
That I thought really worked. Like I probably when I hear violin, I immediately think, okay, this is going to be either country or like chamber music.
Yeah, for sure.
But you did a really great job, sort of incorporating it into just kind of like rock and roll.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. Bronwyn, Beth, did the violin for that. And, I met her through, a friend who I was used to be in a band with. It's his cousin, and she's classically trained. She went to school for it. She was the right person for the job. She did an amazing job. It took like no effort on my end. I just played stuff, and she just played along with it, and it was great.
Yeah, well, it certainly works really well. Everything worked really well. As someone who spends a lot of time writing, I'm always looking for instrumental music I can have on in the background that'll just sort of put me in a nice space
Oh, for sure.
and not be. And I thought, oh, well, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need.
Oh,
Um,
I'm glad that you could use it for that for sure.
oh yeah, no, it was great. It was
Awesome.
great.
That
I
makes me
also,
happy to hear because like I said, like I don't even know like what it sounds like anymore.
yeah, well,
Like, I know what it sounds like, but like I don't know like like I when I listen to it, I find a bunch of things wrong with it.
right.
Like
Well, you're
so
so
many
close.
things. What was that?
You're so close to it.
Yeah, yeah.
it it reminded me a lot of I was a big fan of the soundtrack for the movie The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
I gotta check that out. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit more sort of not I mean it's certainly not country, but there were elements of it that I thought, "Oh, this reminds me just sort of like the atmosphere that's created um that's what it reminded me of. Nick Cave did that album.
Oh well, yeah. I mean that's awesome. That yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, like I'm trying to get into like making library music and stuff like that and soundtracks. So I appreciate that. It's good
Yeah,
to
well,
hear.
you're definitely on the right track because that was
Thank you.
the first thing that came to mind was, oh, this sounds it doesn't sound similar, but it reminds me of that.
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah, that's the goal. I mean,
yeah,
ultimately.
yeah, no, it's well done.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
and the other question was, so you started working on the album in 2014?
Yeah, yeah. That's when I started writing everything on my 12 string. It all revolves around the 12 string. Um, yeah, that's when I started writing it, and I kind of had like a casual approach to recording it and everything like that. Like I started recording in 2014. I didn't like the way that turned out, so then I was like, all right, I got Bronwyn, and we started playing, and I started really liking what we were doing. So me and Bronwyn re-recorded it. I think it was 2018, and I was kind of like, yeah, I'm just gonna work on it whenever it's convenient. Like I'll work on it here and there. No big rush or anything. And then work sent me off to North Carolina to work there for 2 months. And then this was in 2019. And I told myself when I get back from North Carolina, I'm gonna finish this album. Like no more messing around. Then the pandemic hits, like right when I get back, and like I couldn't do it because the studio was shut down. I was like, all right, guess I gotta wait.
Well, I mean, I think it's reassuring to know, I think a lot of people get caught up in trying to get things done as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
Um, so it's really nice to know that the album, because it came out really well.
thank you,
And it
thank you.
doesn't, I feel like, you avoided the trap of like overdoing it. I feel like
Right.
sometimes if you have so much time, you can get in your own way.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
it definitely didn't happen. So
It gets to the point where I got to tell myself like, okay, this is good enough. Like stop messing with it because it's not going to be the way you ultimately want it to be in your head. You know what I mean? That's the goal. We always strive for that, but it's not always going to be that way. And so yeah,
well, that's why I've found, uh, as much as I like to write by myself and try to sort of work everything out, it's always nice to have a second reader to kind of let you know, like, okay, you can, this is good, but this doesn't really work. So if you
yeah,
can find
absolutely.
someone to collaborate with, it's usually helpful to keep you grounded.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times where I'll send it to some of my friends that I'm in other bands with, and I'll be like, "Yo, I need some like constructive criticism, like honest constructive criticism on this right now. Like don't like hold back on like the way you think it sounds or it needs this. You know what I mean? So that's a very healthy approach, I think, to have that circle of people that can constructively criticize what you're doing.
Sure. I think it's tough, it takes discipline to kind of take your ego out of it and
Yeah,
be willing to accept constructive criticism. But once you can get
it's
there,
hard to do too.
it is, but it's worth being able to do it. Um, and I mean, that's really like, I know that some of the people who will be listening to this, are just fans of music, and others will be trying to make their own. And I
Yeah,
think it's important for them to know how many different roads there are. Um, some people work really quickly; they want to try and get everything done in a month. Other times, it can take almost a decade. But
yeah. And like
but it's
I feel like it's totally like okay to take as long as you need because like your artwork is like literally an extension of who you are and your person. That's why I'm gonna self-release all my own music at my own pace. I don't want a timeline or a deadline. Say like you have to get this done by this point. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, all right, now there's all this added stress and pressure to pump out this product, and it could be watered down, or I could get it done, and then a month or two later, it's like, oh, I could have added this, but I had to get it done, so I couldn't. And
absolutely,
that would
yeah.
drive
No,
me crazy.
I know exactly what it's difficult to incorporate any sort of deadline when you're trying to make art,
Yeah,
because it just doesn't abide by that sort of metric. So,
yeah, for
but I
sure.
think what's great is it was nice to know that this album had been sort of at various stages for the last 10 years, and that it's come out the way that it has. I mean, I think it sort of needed the time off, collaborating with other people, re-envisioning things. Um,
Yeah, there was a lot that I added that I went back and took out. I drove my sound engineer guy that I was working with, Joe Smiley. I think I drove him crazy because I'm probably maybe a little bit like you know, a little anal when it comes to what we're doing, and I don't have the ability that he has yet to mix and edit properly. So I might have driven him crazy, but so I apologize for that. But I mean, I feel like that's what I got to do. You know what I mean? Because I get so obsessive over it.
yeah, I mean, one of the one when I was teaching creative writing, one of the things I would always say to people is, don't be afraid to kill your darlings.
Yeah,
Which I think is what I forgot whether or not that was Kerouac who had said that. Someone had said, maybe it was Allen Ginsberg, but don't be afraid to do those things. So,
absolutely.
but no, I mean, I think what what's great is I only listened to the album like once or twice before speaking with you, but it's definitely something that I know I'll go back to. And I feel like I'll keep discovering little things that I didn't know before, because each song is really like layered and textured with, I was actually curious to ask you like what, aside from the violin and guitar, what other instruments do any come to mind that because
that are in there currently.
yeah, current or just
Yeah.
like things you wouldn't expect.
Yeah. So there's obviously like a lot of synthesizers in there as well. I got a Roland JDXI. That's the only synth I have, and there's a lot of sound effects from in there, just playing around that are maybe sometimes a little more subtle. And then people sleep on GarageBand, but I was like, I had GarageBand, and I was using a lot of the plugins, like the strings at the end of Bright Again and the horn section. No, I'm sorry, not the strings, the horn section at the end of Bright Again. Those are all plugins from like GarageBand that I recorded pretty much scratch tracks of, and then I sent them to the person who recorded my album for me, Joe Smiley, and we went into Cubase and just like mixed the stems, made it sound big, and so there's a lot of that. There's some plugins I use as well.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's really amazing what you can do these days,
Yeah,
with the technology. So
for sure.
again, if you're out there and you're interested in making music, listen to Matt and follow his direction.
Yeah, yeah.
Explore.
Yeah, if you're on a budget, you could totally use GarageBand with like your MacBook or something, and at least record like a rough mix of whatever you're trying to do with the plugins or the synths, and then when you want to get it done by a professional, you just send them the stems, and they can work their magic, and you can get some pretty decent sounding recordings. I mean, I've upgraded since then because like that's the next logical step because I've been really interested in like mixing lately and just sound. So I got Studio One now, but GarageBand really, it served its purpose for the time.
Sure.
It was great.
So you had mentioned you're in a few other bands right now,
Yeah.
and this album is coming out next month.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be? I mean, are you continuing to work on more music for this particular project, or for
Yeah.
these?
So I always have a bunch of like ideas floating around in my head for different projects. One of the bands that I'm in, I'm pretty much a hired gun for this band called Lotus Thrones. It's my friend Heath's band. He's super talented. I play guitar for his live band. I'm sure I'll collaborate on some recordings in the future. He's coming out with a full length. I'm not sure the exact date, so I apologize for that. And we're also him and I are working on a project where it's like explosions in the sky type like post rock mixed with like Boards of Canada influence. So there's like post rock guitars with like electronic drum beats, and I'm really liking the way that's turning out so far. That project's called Despondent, so keep an eye out for that.
Sure. See, a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, for sure. I've been working on that project like a lot lately. Just in my studio, going
Cool.
back, recording, re-recording, mixing stuff. That project is gonna be me and him. I'm gonna mix everything and send it away for mastering. So I'm pretty excited for that. Just having something to work on too. And yeah, as far as my solo stuff goes, that's it's mostly gonna be like acoustic and folk stuff. But yeah, I have some ideas for that as well. Some singles and actually, yeah. And I told you I'm trying to get into library music, so then actually I have the whole next album written, and it's going to be similar to. Do you know who Philip Glass is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I was listening to one of his albums when I was driving down Broad Street one day. It's called Music in 12 Parts, where that whole album is just kind of like loop after loop building on top of itself. And that's pretty much what I do with guitar. But I'm not Philip Glass. I'm not classically trained, so it's kind of like the next album is like a punk rock version of like Music in 12 Parts, where it's just going to be loop on top of loop, building on top of itself. But it's all going to be electric guitars. There's not going to be any acoustic. I'm going to get Andrew Snyder to produce and mix that. So I'm really excited for that. That'll be probably in the next couple years. I'm going to try to finish that. So,
So yeah, so there's a lot of projects. Um,
oh yeah,
you may continue this particular one that's more, like you had said, getting into more library music and sound effects. Um, do you have plans? Are you going to try and play any of this live, or is this just a like a studio project?
I've thought about that. I don't know. I'm so busy with like everything in life, from like work to what I do outside of work, including music. So it's just finding the time to do that. And if I do it, I want to do it really well, which means it will require a lot of like practice with the people involved. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's tall order, but yeah, it's something I want to do. Maybe I'll do like a record release show or something like that. I don't know yet.
Yeah. Well,
I was thinking about touring with just like me, my rig, and a bass player, and like a drummer to do some of the like the stuff off the next album that I was talking about. So maybe.
yeah. Well, I mean, there's definitely um, room to do that. It would seem, and I think people, especially now that it's kind of we're getting into the post-COVID period. I think people are really hungry for live music again.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure, absolutely.
but uh, but yeah, I mean, I was really not surprised by this album, but I didn't really know what to expect going in, and it was really I really liked it. Um,
Thank you.
so if you get the chance on the 24th, Ghost in the Western Trap is released. It's really cool ambient soundscapes, instruments you wouldn't necessarily expect. Uh, like Matt had said, the violin and synthesizer you might expect. Um, but yeah, no, I recommend it if you're a fan of music and you just like relaxing to cool stuff. This is for you. Um, I don't get a chance to say that all the time that it's for everybody because a lot of albums are less accessible. Um, but this one, I think anyone would dig. So, and then you're on social media. Do you have a website?
Yeah, so my Bandcamp is houseofgeary.bandcamp.com. You can pre-order the digital album there right now. That gets released on March the 24th, Friday. Um, my Instagram is Matt Geary Music. It's the same as my Facebook. I'm on social media. You can find me there, and you can reach out, talk
Yeah.
about
Well,
whatever.
if you Matt's journey to get this album made has been really fascinating. It's a great album, and
Thank you.
if you have questions, please reach out to him on social media. But yeah, I definitely endorse pick up this album, pre-order it. It's out on the 24th. If Matt has other music coming out, follow what he's up to. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Actually, I sat down last Saturday at 11 because I thought the interview was end. So I'm glad we got it done this weekend.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Yeah, good
Well,
stuff.
good luck with everything,
Thank you.
and be well, and we will be in touch.